Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, if you are listening to this, I am dead. No, I'm just joking. I'm still on vacation. Of course, right now, I am probably on my way to Florence from Copenhagen, or I'm already there. I don't even know where I am. I'm like that Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm jet lagged. I'm tired. I haven't slept, all that stuff. No, I'm pretty sure I'm on my way to Florence from Copenhagen, where I was for the weekend. But where am I within the time-space continuum? Where am I in the podcast? Well, it's episode 83, where we are on part 3 of our Letterboxd Four Favorite mini-series. And today, we're going to talk not about Dune Part 1, which is normally in my top 4 on Letterboxd. I swapped out Dune Part 1 for a very fun, very cute little movie from New Zealand called Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Yes, I'm sure many of you have seen this movie. It's easily the smallest movie of the 4 that I'm going to be talking about in this series, but I am so excited to talk about it today. A very special movie to me. I'm going to explain my connection to this film, how I came to watching it and all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you are enjoying your August. It's actually only July 9th right now for me. So exactly 1 month from today, I will be celebrating the marriage of my brother and my new sister-in-law. So that's a lot of fun. Actually, wow, exactly 1 month today. That's kind of crazy to think about. But okay, as for today, it's like a normal episode pretty much. We're going to do non-spoilers, then spoilers. This movie is from 2016. So if you haven't seen it, obviously be careful of spoilers. But in the non-spoilers, I'll be very careful not to give away the ending and just talk about little things that happen or themes and how I feel about it, the performances, development, all that good stuff. But should we do it? Let's do it. Let's jump into Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Hunt for the Wilderpeople is a 2016 comedy-adventure film coming in at a very nice 1 hour, 41 minutes, directed by Taika Waititi, who has done Boy was his previous film. I absolutely love Boy. What We Do in the Shadows, Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, Thor Love and Thunder. It is also written by Taika Waititi based on a book. Budget of $2.5 million. Box office, it came in at $23.2 million. Reviews are extremely positive for this film. 7.8 on IMDb, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 91% audience score, 4.1 on Letterboxd with a 4-star mode rating. The synopsis for Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Ricky Baker runs away to the wild when his foster mother dies. However, his cantankerous uncle Hector joins him and gets to know him better on their way out in the wild. The film stars Sam Neill as Hector, Julian Dennison as Ricky, Rima Tawida as Bella, Rachel House as Paula, Tiore Nugati Melbourne as Kahu, Oscar Kitely as Andy, Stan Walker as Ron, a bunch of other fun New Zealand actors that are really good in this. But let's talk Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Why do I love this movie? Well, I've actually written a haiku of why I love this movie, or my initial thoughts on the film, which if you've seen the movie, you know haikus play an important part in Ricky Baker's expression. So here we go. I love this movie. Ricky and Hector are fun. Always make me cry. So that's 575. There you go. That's my haiku. But no, this movie is at first a very cold, awkward hug that slowly wraps around you just a little bit tighter in the most lovely and nice way. It's one of my favorite movies because it's about family and, you know, not in the Fast and Furious sense. It's legitimately about family, untraditional families or non-traditional families, and how we find the right people in our lives. But the development for this project, Taika Waititi began to first adapt the book in 2005 and completed multiple drafts. The early drafts stayed true to the book. However, later versions departed from it in several ways. Julian Dennison was cast by Waititi from earlier work they did together on a commercial. The film had a budget of approximately 4.5 million New Zealand dollars, of which 2 million of that came from the New Zealand Film Commission. The film was shot over 5 weeks on locations including the Central Plateau and Waitakere Ranges. Almost the entire film was shot using a single camera. That's crazy. This is very small scale filmmaking. It's very small budget. It's a very small movie, and that's what I love about it. It's so tiny and intimate and special. But let's talk about the performances, of course. Julian Dennison, my main man as Ricky Baker. We've seen him in other stuff, like he was in Deadpool 2, he was in Y2K, he was in How to Train Your Dragon, the live action version. He is absolutely hilarious in this film. Like, he starts off as so insulated and you wonder, oh, is this kid like a bad egg? And then he's just like the weirdest kid ever. He's so quirky, and it's not that people want him because he's dangerous. He's just been misunderstood. He's just a little bit strange and out there. there and he needs that levity for someone to pull it out of him. And he's so vulnerable, like just this little kid that gives us the perfect fish out of water story. And Sam Neill as Hector, I will say this is my favorite Sam Neill role. It's a fish out of water story for him in another sort of way of him needing to socialize with someone that isn't just Bella, his wife, who passes away. And that's what I really love about the characters of this film is it's two people having to push outside of their normal comfort zones, and they're trying to find comfort in someone that they, in their normal life would probably never speak to. Then we have Rima Tewiyada as Bella, the foster mom that takes in Ricky along with Hector, and she is just like one of the best characters ever. She's so comforting, she's so lovely, she pokes fun at him, she's, all giggly, she respects his space, and there's so much I want to talk about her character and the relationships in this film, but it's just such a special performance and such a special person, as well as Rachel House as Paula. She plays this child services lady, no child left behind, as she always says, and she's hilarious. Like, she's literally a cartoonish villain that is chasing after Ricky the entire film, and it's just mesmerizing the stuff that she gets up to in this, as well as her little sidekick, Andy, who's played by Oscar Knightley. He's hilarious. He's always saying, like, Paula, we don't do that, or Paula, like, you're child services, you're not a cop, and all that. It's so funny the hijinks that they get up to in this movie, but the story, like, these are the kinds of movies that I love. Not just coming of age stories, not just fish out of water, but just I love movies about families that are like irregular, whether it's an adopted child or it's blended families or whatever. I just love people that come together and kind of make their own movie. Maybe that's why I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies so much when it comes to the MCU. I don't know why that just came to my mind, but like these stories of these groups that come together and very quickly become inseparable. That's what I absolutely love in films. And I love Hunt for the Wilderpeople. It's use of chase and tension and grief, and this is a story about not just them running away from the police so Ricky doesn't have to go in back to foster services after Bella has died, but they're both running away from their problems and facing Bella's death. That's what Hector and Ricky are doing. They didn't just like stay in the bush, and go on the run so easily. If sure, they could have gone back or they could have tried to explain or just let themselves get turned in or whatever, but I feel like a lot of this movie is them running away from feelings and running away from Bella's death. And Taika Waititi, let's talk about his directing and then we'll talk about his writing in a little bit, but I think he knocks it out of the friggin' park in this movie. Just like with Boy, he brings such a sensitivity and a goofiness that just feels so, not even corny, it feels so open and honest and childish, and I love it. It's that kind of magical feeling of being young. I love how he uses these different storytelling methods like montages or these interesting stitches where you're panning around a single area and you see these different eras or these different movements all being stitched together, and then it's so good, and he has so many visual gags in this that are just very funny, and there's a lot of physical comedy. I think he does a really interesting thing in such a small little intimate film like this where he makes the movie feel so big because they are running through the New Zealand bush. Like, this is bush country, it's giant, and they're just getting lost in this giant landscape, and Taika really does give a sense of scale to this film where it feels like, oh, well, they're not just going to get caught and they're not just going to run into people. Like, when they do run into the people in this film, it's a real miracle, and they're just sort of hovering hunting camp to hunting camp or whatever, and I really do think they make this movie feel as big as possible with the smallest budget that they could, and that's just so fantastic. And he makes it seem like our two heroes really could survive in this endless landscape. As well as his writing, it's interesting he took so long with this script. Like, he took 10 years before they started filming, and I'm happy he did because this story does feel very thought out. It feels very measured. It feels very confident in what it wants to be, and it's not trying to branch out too far. There's never a moment where they're like going into another story mode or they bring something up from the past that I'm like, oh, okay, we should pay more attention to that, or let's go back and talk about that later. I do really think everything is so perfectly measured in this film. There's not too many random characters that show up for 10 seconds. Maybe one that I'll talk about in spoilers, but honestly, I like their inclusion because it's hilarious. But all of Taika Waititi's films are really about family, and that's what I love about his storytelling. Yes, his last couple of projects haven't been superb. Well, mainly Thor Love and Thunder. I know he did Our Flag Means Death, and he did what was that Apple TV show, Adventure? I don't know, but Thor Love and Thunder was a real disaster and where he went too far into Taika, versus I do think he generally does talk about family in all of his projects, and especially parents and their children and siblings maybe don't get along. Like, even What We Do in the Shadows, I think that's a really funny movie, sort of talking about your own mortality because they are vampires, but they're also roommates, they're friends, they've all been around forever, and they want love, they want things in life still, and it's a difficult thing to exist in that plane or whatever. But I mean, Boy, of course, is based on his real life where his father came back, or he had an interesting relationship with his father. Jojo Rabbit, of course, is about adolescence and being a child where your mother is maybe doing something against the country that you're living in at the same time, and you're joining in that rebellion with her, and everything that you think is right is actually wrong. And then Thor Ragnarok, of course, is about Thor facing his sister and reconciling with his brother and losing his father. And all of his movies really are operating within families, and they involve characters that are trying to come to terms with their imperfections as a family. And that's what I love. And all of his movies are an adventure in some way. Like even the first movie, Boy, where they're searching for money or something like that in the yard, and that's why the dad came back, because he buried money. Jojo Rabbit, of course, is about hiding someone and slowly developing a crush on them and what it means to be human and to grow. Thor Ragnarok, of course, is an adventure movie, let's be real. But he loves to explore the unconventional family and give an adventure with the unconventional family. But one of, I think, Taika's best things that he does in a lot of his movies, maybe outside of Thor Love and Thunder, of course, I think that is his worst movie, but outside of that, every movie he does, he always has these weird side characters or these just random hilarious people that show up for maybe one or two scenes, maybe only a couple seconds, and you're like, that is one of the funniest characters, one of the weirdest written characters, and yet they're more memorable than most like full-length characters in films. You know, in this film, there's like newscasters. There's this one newscaster that's going around the bush and touching the leaves and like just giving such a hilarious narration of the countrywide manhunt for Hector and Ricky. And then Paula, the child services lady, goes on this breakfast television show, and I think the two main actors that are the television hosts do such a good job as the deadpan straight person in the scene that are reacting to this weird child services lady that thinks she's in the military. And it's just, I really love the complete mixture of random people in this film that don't necessarily have to have the biggest roles, but they have such a memorable moment and the impact, and they bring such hilarious, just genuine little twists and turns, or just little heartbeats that make this movie so much more uplifting or so much more cute and adorable. Like even the police are kind of goofy in this movie as well, but there's such a whimsical feeling to this film. Like Taika, even a police officer is explaining something that they're going to try and ping Ricky's phone at one point, and they're using this device called Stingray, and it cuts to like this old like 1960s, 70s old TV explanation of technology that you would see. And it's just like fun little things that you don't necessarily have to throw these things in, and you could just have someone explain it and it's funny and have a funny reaction from Paula and Andy. But instead we get this cool little clip from an old school thing, and I think that's way more enjoyable, and it adds just so many, I don't know, little bouncy, zippy moments that are fun. And Hunt for the Wilderpeople does use chapters. Like I think there's 10 chapters and an epilogue in this film, and I do like that because it's not just paying homage to the fact that it was a book originally. I think it's Wild Pork and Watercress is what it's called, or something like that. I do like that it is paying homage, or it is acknowledging that this comes from the book and there's very distinct chapters. I think it breaks up the story really well. And I mean, tons of movies use chapters. I'm not always the biggest fan of it because I think you could just fly seamlessly into the next thing, but I do really like how it sets an immediate tone. Like the opening chapter is called Bad Egg, and I like that it's like Ricky is considered this dangerous kid by Paula, and everyone's like, oh, he's so much trouble, and titling this section like the term that he's been given as this awful child when he's just one of the most normal kids in the world by far. And then there's like way later in the movie, I won't say what happens, but there's a chapter titled War, and it just adds such a invigoration of energy into this film that's hilarious. I do just like the writing style of this film, how sort of laid back it is. Like they're a part of this giant nationwide manhunt. Everyone is after them. There's a $10,000 reward, and yet Hector and Ricky are just kind of having the fun time of their lives, getting to know each other. They're just hanging out. They're on this fun little camping trip to them, and they're like, yeah, eventually we'll go in. And I love that it's just this duality in the writing, that everyone outside of our main pair thinks this is a life or death situation, but Ricky and Hector are like, whatever, we'll be okay. And they're just kind of roaming around. Like Ricky does take it very seriously, but it's just hilarious how laid back Hector is. He's like, all right, well, let's not get caught, but we can stay out here for a few weeks. And you know, the humor of this film is just so well balanced. I sort of already touched on it, how well balanced this film is in general, but writing wise, with a lot of comedies, especially the last couple movies that Taika has done, he has gone too far in some moments, but I think this is maybe his most balanced film, where I think the humor and the overdoing it at times only adds to the really fun elements that Ricky if Ricky is making too many jokes in the moment, it's actually almost in character, where if it was an adult doing that in another comedy, you would be like, okay, we don't need this laughing moment right now. Whereas Ricky, he's a child and he doesn't know how to react, and he never acts appropriately, almost like he takes everything too seriously, or he's way too goofy, and there's no in between. He's someone that is just like living on the wildest parts of the spectrum on either side of reactions to someone hunting them. He'll just freak out or whatever, and it never feels like his humor is bulldozing the story or eating away at our serious moments. And like, yes, like I said before, a lot of my favorite movies are blockbuster films like The Batman, Dune Part 1 and 2, La La Land, Drive, Interstellar, Inception, Singing in the Rain. Like, those aren't all technically, blockbusters, but they are bigger movies with more known directors or actors, and they're more publicly known, I would say. Whereas, this, I don't know, it's kind of fun. I do think as the years go by, more and more people are finding this movie, and I always see one particular scene from this film that involves Terminator and Sarah Connor and Paula and Ricky facing down. I always see that scene shared everywhere on social media every few months, and it's so funny. I watch it every time, and it's just one of my favorite moments in this movie. But I do like how this film is so special to me because it feels so tiny, and it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like almost My Little Secret when I watch this. I know tons of people have seen this. Of course, it is a very widely known film. It was sort of a movie that put Taika Waititi on the map a little bit more after Boy, but I just love how I've always had this connection with this film. And I guess I'll go into how I stumbled onto this. I believe it was like grade 12, like my last year of high school. I watched this and What We Do in the Shadows because I remember showing my brother What We Do in the Shadows when I had a snow day, and I think he was home for reading week or something like that, and I showed it to him, and my God, we laughed so hard. And then I went and watched like all of Taika's films except Eagle vs. Shark. So I watched Boy, What We Do in the Shadows again, then I watched this, and I think Thor Ragnarok, had already come out. So I watched Thor Ragnarok, of course, multiple times. It's like one of my favorite Marvel movies. But when I watched this, it was like, I don't know, it was like seeing God or seeing lightning strike 5 steps away from you. It just was so magical, and I had such a connection, and I couldn't explain like the feeling I had watching it of, when you just watch a movie and it's exactly what you want, and it hits all the right tones, all the right emotional beats of what you need in your life. Especially, I think it did come out at a time where I was about to leave for university in the summer, so I was going through a weird period where it's like, oh, I'm moving out for the first time in my life, like it's going to be a new adventure. I don't really know what to expect. I was scared of like, am I going to meet people? Is there anyone out there that's going to want to be friends with me at university? And it's just very nice to have this comforting movie that says no matter who you are, like you can be the tough as nails bastard kind of jerk like Hector, or you can be the goofiest child like Ricky Baker, or you can just be, a funny lady like Bella. But there's friends and there's family for everyone out there, and there's always this newfound relation or these newfound communities that you can make wherever you are. I don't know, it's very hard to explain what hit so instantly for me. And I think there is something really special about watching your favorite movies over the years as you go through different stages in your life. Like I was watching this in grade 12, like I said, but then I believe like probably 3 out of 5 years before university, my parents and I would watch this movie the night before we'd take me back to university, because I would usually leave a little earlier than classes starting because we would have training camp for soccer. So I would be going like halfway through August, and I was always really sad leaving my friends and my girlfriend back home when everyone still had 3 or sometimes 4 weeks of summer vacation left before classes started. So it was very difficult for me leaving all that behind, feeling like there's still so much of summer left. But this movie was like a nice little bit of encouragement or a hug the night before I would leave for university, and that's just always been a really special thing to me. And it's funny how over the years, like I said, you sort of are at a different point in your life, and now watching this, having finished university, now working and being an adult, and I've done my 2 degrees, and I've started this, and I'm doing things in my life that I'm like, wow, this is crazy that I'm 25 years old. I'm not that little grade 12 that's scared of university anymore. Now I'm, scared of what adulthood's going to be like, but that's way different, and it's really, really gorgeous. And as lighthearted and nice as this film is, it's not afraid to really take some dark moments and some grieving moments, but there are a couple story beats. Like there's one story beat, and it makes me extremely sad every time I see it, and it's a really gorgeous movie that doesn't just want to cheer you up the whole time. It's like you have to feel everything. You have to feel the happiness, the fear, the anxiety, but also it really wants you to have those sad moments. And I think it's also breaking down Hector and Ricky's relationship, that they are going to feel everything together and they're mourning one thing so then they can mourn Bella. And it's a really gorgeous ride that we go through where we're encouraged to feel all of the emotions. If I had to rank Taika Waititi's films, obviously I think Thor: Love and Thunder would definitely be bottom for me. Then, oh man, it's hard from there, honestly. Like, I love Boy, I love Hunt for the Wilderpeople, I love Jojo Rabbit. Oh my god, I love Thor Ragnarok. Like, I don't know if I could, and it's so strange because now he seems like such a hack, or he just seems like he's really dove off a cliff. He doesn't really have a lot of projects going. He's never very liked publicly. His movies up to Thor: Love and Thunder, up to Jojo Rabbit were so special to me. And then I think kind of the Hollywood thing changed him a little bit after he won his Oscar. A strange artist now that when he does do stuff now, I'm not that into it, I guess. But I would say probably my favorite film of his is maybe Hunt for the Wilderpeople. I think Jojo Rabbit is also fantastic. That might even be my favorite, or Thor Ragnarok. I don't know. Every time I'm like, maybe it's so it's hard. It's very hard to pick. Okay, but let's do 2 stars and a wish for Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Star number 1. I love just the heart of this movie. That it feels like a nice, loving movie that's about family. And there's just such a heartbeat to this film that really is trying to give you all the love, and it's very proud. It wears its heart on its sleeve. And then star number 2, I would definitely just go the great performances. Like, I think this is my favorite Sam Neill role. I think he is so good in this, and he has a couple moments here that honestly, they choke me up, and it makes me very, very sad. My wish, Rhys Darby's in this movie for one scene, and I do think his inclusion or his role that he's playing almost hovers a little bit over the top, but I think it still pulls it off, but it does feel a little bit almost out of place, but that's kind of the point. But at the same time, look, overall, Hunt for the Wilderpeople will always be a classic to me. It's one of my favorites. It was very informative for me all the ways from the ages of like 17 to 21, and it remains so. It's one of those movies that will stay with me for the rest of my life. 5 stars. Let's jump into spoilers. Alright, spoilers for Hunt for the Wilderpeople. There's actually a lot of stuff I want to talk about in spoilers because there's so much I didn't want to give away or even address. I know normally spoilers for me is kind of what happens at the end of the scenes or the major story beats, and I didn't want to even come close to it this week. So, Ricky's mom, I think, is a very interesting point of this story, that Ricky thinks his mom actually didn't love him and didn't want him, and that's a lot of his insecurity coming from that. It probably comes up 2 or 3 times in the film, him thinking about his mom or talking about his mom or his life in the city, and it's very devastating because as goofy as this kid is and how much he uses humor as a defense mechanism or as a way to sort of distract from scary stuff or the sad stuff in life, he's actually been through some stuff. Like, he talks about his friend Amber, and she was in a home with him. Clearly when she was talking about her father, like trash talking her dad, he must have killed her because she disappeared and never came back. He never saw her again, and Hector is just kind of shaken by this. Like, he can't believe, like, oh my god, you're just some goofy kid, but you've seen some terrible things. Or talking about his mom and just saying like, I don't know why she didn't want me, and Hector just tells him like, you know what, I bet she loved you and she was just scared, or she was young and she didn't know what to do and she thought someone could take better care of you. And it's just such a nice moment of assurance from Hector. And yes, they have a very rocky relationship where it does sort of hover back and forth between them liking each other and hating each other in certain moments, but they really very quickly become best friends. And Hector is rough around the edges as well. Like, he is illiterate, he's gone to jail, he was in prison for manslaughter, so he had a rough past as well. And they kind of have a lot in common in some ways, that they had to almost find the bush, or they had to find Bella as well. That, you know, Bella had a heart of gold, as he says, and she took in him, and then she took in Ricky later. And I love that, how they both realized Bella was such a special soul, that they've been through terrible things, but Bella is this guiding light that brought them both out of that, and now they need to be with each other to honor that. And they've found that special friendship that they can provide for each other, and Bella united them. And now on a lighter note, I do love that Bella right away when they meet is, you know, she's trying to be very nice to him, but she is funny, and she's like teasing him for being a little bit bigger, like, wow, who ate the guy who ate all the pies? Or she's like, what do you want to do? You want to eat? Are you hungry? Of course you are, look at you. And it's just like so funny because she thinks, oh, I'm being cute, and then Ricky just has such a deadpan on his face, and she's like, sorry. And I love how awkward she is at first, that she's really not like the perfect lady, or she doesn't really know what to say sometimes, but she's so respectful and caring for Ricky. Like, he keeps trying to run away every night. The first night he makes it 200 meters away, and she comes and finds him, and she's like, well, why don't you come have some breakfast, then you can run away. And she's never like, oh, don't run away, stay here, like, we want to keep you. She just tells him like, yeah, you can run away, do whatever you want. And she just doesn't really care. It's just such a loving thing that she realizes he's a rebel, or he's gonna lash out, and he's been through a lot. Of course he's gonna have these tough times settling at their their place and he's not going to love it right away. Like, it's not a one-day thing. And I'm sure she probably had the same thing with Hector, that he was a wild guy and she had to tame him a little bit. And Ricky's the same, that he's been house to house. He's been through all these different systems. He's been involved with juvenile detentions or whatever, a juvie, as he says. So Bella recognizes that and says he needs his space to kind of lash out. He needs a space to be himself and find his place here. And Bella just slowly breaks him down and starts to just give him little things that make him feel a little bit more at home, like this hot water pattern, a cozy, or what do you call those, where it's like hot water inside of the pack thing that you can hold on to and remain warm. I don't know, a heat pad or whatever you want to call it, but she puts one in his bed every night, no matter what. Even after he tries to run away, the next night he's getting ready to run away and he sees the heat pad and he doesn't leave. And I really love that, how the use of this heat pad, it's so important at the start of the film for this little gesture that makes Ricky trust Bella right away, or like Bella right away, that, oh, no matter what I do, she's always going to have that little heat pad there. And then he takes it with him into the forest when he gets lost and it bursts over his fire. And that's like, truly, Bella is gone. Like, that is it. That is the last source of comfort that he had in the forest, and now it's done. Bella's funeral is easily one of my favorite scenes in this film. So Taika Waititi, of course, he's in his film. He has to be in all of his films. He played Hitler. He played Korg. He's in everything. He's in Boy, where he plays his own father. And I just love how he's this goofy priest that clearly doesn't have a good metaphor for these doors in life. And there's one door with like Doritos and all this stuff. There's a second door, but then there's a third door and Jesus is behind it. And Hector just can't believe how inappropriate this funeral is. And it's probably one of my favorite Taika inclusions in one of his own films, apart from What We Do in the Shadows, because he's like a full-on main character in that. And Korg, he's pretty good as Korg. But I just love how it's his smallest role in one of his films, but it's incredibly effective that he puts himself in, and he just suits this nuts priest so well. And after the funeral, they're driving home. It's Ricky and Hector's just driving, but he stops in the middle of the road at one point and just sort of sits there and sulks. And oh my God, it's just so devastating in that moment that it's hitting him like a wave, and he just realizes like, wow, my Bella's gone. And Ricky just can't believe like how beat up Hector is about it, because up to then, Hector's just been this super rough, intimidating, scary guy. Like, when you first meet Hector, he's terrifying in this film, and it seems like he wants nothing to do with emotions at all, or especially Ricky at all. But Bella was everything to him, and he lost his soulmate that day, the person that made him a good person. And I just really love how quickly our perception of Hector changes in this film. Like, when you hear him crying out, devastated, saying Bella's name over and over again, and Ricky's like, shit just got real, but like, you know, not in the other sense, which I love the use of shit just got real in this film. And Ricky teaching Hector all of this gangster slang like scucks and like, what, you're not a gangster and all this stuff. It's so lovely how Hector does get to be like the cool older uncle at times, and he does say like, shit just got real again, and he does sort of indulge Ricky at times to be like, all right, what do you got? Like, give me some silly stuff. And it's entertaining. Again, they're on a camping trip. To them, this is like such a fun adventure, and they get to just be together and kind of hang out in the woods, and they're on the run, and it's like this fun little mishap that they're having, and nobody understands that they didn't actually run away, but now it's too late, and he's like, whatever, like, we'll just explain to the park rangers. But then there's these dumbass hunters that come after them, and it's just, they think Hector's a pervert. But also the knack, and talking about being in the bush, like Ricky's like, what's the knack? Well, you just have like a knack to do things naturally, or you just figure things out easily. And I love that part of the coming of age of this story is Ricky developing the knack in the bush and just starting to do things without thinking, getting good at things. And like killing the pig, that's a big moment in this film, which, like, let's just talk about that for a moment, because one of the saddest moments of this film for me is Zag, Hector's dog, dying because it's killed by the pig. Oh my God. I can't do animals dying in movies anymore. I can't do animal pain. Since I became a dog owner 5 years ago, I'm so bad at watching anything with dogs or just pets in general. Like, even watching Jurassic Park a couple times, I'm like, I feel so bad for the dinosaurs. Like, I'm sad about all of these dinosaurs being kind of tortured, and Zag dying in this. And I mean, it's good pig CGI in that moment, to be honest. Like, it's a really effective scene because the CGI is really strong and it doesn't take you out of it. Reminds me a lot of Okja in some ways, that it's that sort of almost claymation looking in some ways. I don't know how that makes any sense, but them being on this journey together and losing people they love, like Zag, like Bella, but finding each other and making this new life together is just so gorgeous and lovely. I love it so much. It is just so perfect. But them even meeting other people and sort of being celebrities is so funny, because they find that park ranger who's having a heart attack. And obviously they don't really know what's happening on the outer world. Like they're not watching TV or listening to the radio every day, so they aren't sure what do people think of them. So when they meet the sister and the brother and Ricky has to go get help from them, they're like, oh, you're Ricky Baker, like can we get a photo, like you're so cool and all this stuff, like I know who you are, you're on TV all the time, yeah man, like keep running and all this stuff. And it's just so funny how they're not really public enemies number 1 and 2 or whatever. They're just these two people that are stuck in this mishap, and everyone in New Zealand's like, oh, you're famous or whatever. And then they meet Ricky and he's just like a normal kid and they think he's so nice. And I love that chapter because it's called Normal Life or whatever. And it's just Ricky gets to live one night in a normal family's home and with a normal brother and sister, and just like understanding what those dynamics are, what it feels like to live in a regular house where there is a healthy relationship. And he's just lost Bella, so he has that return to comfort for an evening. And it's really lovely. I think that's a super effective evening there. All right, a couple more things. I do like that there is a bit of a almost religious aspect or spiritual aspect with Bella thinking she's like part of these people from the sky, or she comes from this lake that's like super close to the sky. And Hector, you know, obviously he doesn't buy into any of that, but Ricky's like, oh, that's where Bella's from. She's like from this lake that is super close to the sky. And then they make the adventure there, the two of them. And Ricky finally reveals to Hector that he actually brought Bella along, like her ashes in this little box. And you would think Hector would get mad right away. And then Hector just like tells him, well, thanks for bringing her. Like, it's really nice she's been with us this whole time. I'd say this is close enough to the sky or whatever. And they start spreading her ashes off this waterfall. And it's such like an impromptu, improvised funeral. Especially they just had a big moment where they really had to go on the run, and they had a very scary moment with Zag and they lost him. And it's just, it's I don't know, it's just, it brings them so close together that they're grieving two people now. They've had two funerals in some way. And it's just such a lovely, I always cry at that moment when Hector, like I thought always, oh, he's going to be pissed at him right away. And then it's just, you can see how happy he is that she's been with us the whole time. And in some ways, she was with them in more than one way, you know? And like that special lake and the spirituality and majestical, that's the word that they keep using, Ricky, because, you know, Hector is illiterate and he says, wow, it's just majestical up here. And Ricky corrects him. But then that becomes like their special word that they're using because majestic doesn't sound magical enough. And it's just, I love how Hector indulges not only Ricky's buffoonery and silliness sometimes, but then Ricky at other times is like, oh, Hector, you're so silly, but indulges his silliness as well. It's just, it's so cute, their dynamic, how they constantly are trying to learn about each other. They slowly are peeling back layers and revealing things. Like Ricky asks him, why didn't you guys ever have kids? And he says, well, I couldn't. And it's just, it's really nice how close they grow, that in the end, Hector really does like being his uncle as much as he hated this idea at first, as well as, you know, Bella didn't have any family. And that's what Hector says, like, we're lucky we found you because Bella didn't have any family. That's why she wanted to take you in. That's why she took me in, because she's someone that is good at meeting people and taking them in. And it's just, it's really beautiful. And I mentioned it briefly before, but chapter 10, War, where they're at Psycho Sam's house with Rhys Darby, and the police find them because Rhys Darby's character plugged in Ricky's phone. I love this whole grandstand. Ricky is going to go out crazy. He wants to go out in a blaze of glory with, you know, in a shootout or whatever, like a true gangster. And then Hector's like, no, I'm just thinking we run the gas out of the truck and then we turn ourselves in. And it's just such a fun swing. And for a small movie like this, there's tons of police cars. There's a whole like military tank. And it's really fun how big they're swinging at the end of this film. And it's just a really enjoyable time that has these big swings of them, not just on the run, but then they start arguing in the car. And once again, they're separated. And I love that Ricky is feeling that abandonment in the last minute again, that he thinks Hector is a traitor because, oh, you want to give up on us, like you're a traitor and you don't actually love me and all this stuff. And he thinks this was all fake or whatever. But I just love that they do reunite in the end. The ending is probably my favorite part of this movie, other than him meeting Bella at first and getting that initial comfort. I think the end and them remaining close and visiting each other, or Ricky coming and apologizing for shooting him and saying like, oh, well, you could come live with us. They need lots of help on the farm and all that stuff. And Hector's in like an old age rehabilitation home, and it's just, he hates it because he hates old people. And it's them deciding to go on another adventure and try to live a normal life together now is such a nice way to end it and kind of show that these bonds are unable to be broken because what they have found is just so special. And Ricky is living with that brother and sister that he met that night, but he misses his uncle, who is now his brand new best friend. It's just a really touching film that talks about the importance of family, and that yes, we can be all a little bit rough at first, but we are all seeking that community, or we're we're all seeking those bonds that we want to make in our lives and find our special people, find our Bellas, and anyone would be happy to find family. But I think that's actually all I have for Hunt for the Wilderpeople right now. Maybe a shorter episode today, but I'm still very happy that we got to speak about another one of my favorite movies like this one. So that's been Hunt for the Wilderpeople. And in fact, I think that's probably going to do it for episode 83, Letterboxd Four Favorites, part 3, Hunt for the Wilderpeople. As always, please rate and review the show wherever you get your great podcasts like Watcher of All Things, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. We're, of course, an Acast-produced show. If you're on the YouTube channel, please hit like, subscribe, comment, rank your Taika Waititi films. What do you love about Hunt for the Wilderpeople if you've seen it? Write me a haiku in the comments if you'd like. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know when new videos, new podcasts drop. You can also email the show to get in touch with us, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are just at Watcher of All Things. The TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. There's something on my social media every day. Go find me on there. It's a lot of fun. Also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show. I'll follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week, it's the final installment in the Letterboxd Four Favorite series. It's part 4, where we are talking Drive. Another Ryan Gosling movie, I know, but I'm so excited to talk about this movie with you guys. But for right now, I'm going to go enjoy the Italian sunshine because I think I'm in Florence right now at this point on the trip, right? But thank you all so much for the love, the encouragement, the comments, all the nice messages I get from you guys. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.